As we are in the height of the summer season, the transfers are coming in thick and fast. And here are 20 players that need to leave each Premier League side respectively. AFC Bournemouth are first on the list, and as quite a small team, it's quite difficult to pick out one of the players, as well as the fact that they performed quite well this season, comfortably in the Premier League survival. With Iraola as manager now, anybody could leave, but I've gone for Mark Travers, the goalkeeper. His time seems done there. He started in 2017 on loan a couple of seasons ago. I think there will be another loan move for Mark Travers, but probably for his career, it's best that he moves. Arsenal FC, and I've gone for Emile Smith-Rowe. There are a few players that are on the list. Thomas Partey, one of them especially. There are others like Lokonga as well in centre midfield. Declan Rice coming in, Havertz coming in that central role. There isn't enough room for Emile Smith-Rowe at Arsenal. I think a low move, potentially even going to a lower level Premier League side, is the best move for Emile. Because of an injury, only playing a few times last season, coming in and performing quite well. Granted, the Champions League makes his case a lot better as Arsenal need a more bloated team, but Emile Smith-Rowe needs that for his confidence and his confidence alone. Burnley FC, this is a difficult one because of the transition. They're going from the Championship to the Premier League, dominating the Championship. And as a Blackburn fan, that is hard to say, hard to swallow. But I've gone for the striker Wout Weghorst. Obviously wasn't part of the Burnley team last season. Coming in this summer, and they lost a couple of players, primarily Nathan Tella to Southampton in the summer, obviously on loan. So Weghorst could in fact stay at Burnley FC. However, I've gone for him because it doesn't really fit the Burnley mould under Vincent Kompany. Luton Town FC are the next team on the list. And I've gone for Carlos Mendes Gomez. He was on loan at Fleetwood last season. Obviously not part of the Rob Edwards transition and evolution at Luton Town. I think coming from Morecambe to Luton was a big jump in itself, never mind to the Premier League. Another loan for him because he's quite young in himself. He has good flair and good skill set on him. So a loan move to a potential Championship team or League One is probably best for him. Another new Premier League side, I've gone for Sheffield United next. I've gone for the striker Ryan Brewster. Again, this is another team that's quite small, and the team itself does need bolstering in the summer, but Ryan Brewster has showed that he is not Premier League quality. Only scored one goal last season in a promotion side. Ryan Brewster showing he has a low in confidence right now. And I think that a Championship team, maybe even as low as League One or abroad, just to get out of the spotlight, will be best for Ryan Brewster. European Conference winners West Ham is next on the list, and I've gone for a player that doesn't fit the David Moyes way, doesn't fit the West Ham style of play. A player that does have a lot of pedigree and a lot of value somewhere else, potentially in Manchester United. That's Gianluca Scamacca. I think that his hold of play doesn't suit West Ham, and I think that he works well in behind. Not the way that David Moyes obviously wants to play. That's nothing on David Moyes, nothing on West Ham, nothing on Scamacca, but it just doesn't seem to be fitting well between the two. And I think selling him while his stock is semi-okay is the way forward for West Ham this season. Nottingham Forest next, and obviously their team is massive right now. Playing with 50 or so players is a draw of a hat, isn't it? And I've gone for Lewis O'Brien, one of the players that weren't included in the 25-man squad. Nearly went to Blackburn Rovers on loan last season, currently at DC United. But obviously he's not part of Steve Cooper's plans, and the owner seems to be trusting Steve Cooper as he kept him on for another contract last season, showing that Lewis O'Brien needs to go out on loan, needs to be sold, needs to happen some way, shape or form. Brentford FC, and this one's an easy one. It's goalkeeper David Raya. Obviously he's wanting to go, was linked with Tottenham for 40 million before the transfer collapsed and they got another goalkeeper in the meantime. He's been linked with Manchester United and other Premier League sides going forward. 1 year left on his contract as well. I believe that Brentford would want to cash in, and they are already looking at new goalkeepers to be the replacement of David Raya. Ergo, this is the obvious choice. Crystal Palace next, and the forgotten man in the Premier League, coming from Ajax to Crystal Palace, it's Gerard Riedewald, only playing a handful of times last season and a handful of times over the last few seasons as well. Injuries have played a massive part in his Palace career, and I think that he's clearly not up to the scratch at Palace right now. There seems to be a transition period going on at Palace with Roy Hodgson back in charge as well, and he didn't fancy him even back when he was in charge the first time. So this seems like the perfect time for both the player and the club to separate ways. Wolverhampton Wanderers is next, the team in the Midlands, and a man that I forgot was still at Wolverhampton needs to leave right about now. It's Fabio Silva, obviously been on loan at Anderlecht and PSV in the last couple of seasons, still hasn't had a great summer or a season since his time in Portugal. I believe a transfer back to Portugal is the best way to suit Fabio Silva right now. And something that's interesting that I've looked up recently is that Fabio Silva is still only 20 years old. How young did Wolverhampton sign this player? Everton FC, the team in Merseyside, the blue half of the Mersey. I've got for a player that's still there. Surprisingly, he was on loan at Besiktas last season. You'll know, obviously, I'm talking about Dele Alli. Obviously, there's a clause in his contract. If he plays a certain amount of games, then he has to pay 10, 20, 30 million pounds to Tottenham. And Everton cannot afford that right now. So out on loan for nothing is probably the best way to suit both Dele Alli and Everton, whether it's back out on loan to somewhere in America, somewhere just to get some sort of confidence back in the player, because there is a player obviously there, still obviously being 27 years of age. He should be in his prime right about now, but it seems to be going down at an immense speed. The team at Craven Cottage, Fulham FC, had a great season last campaign, and a great summer is in the offering. However, I believe that João Palhinha needs to leave Fulham right now to get to his potential. Obviously still quite young and still quite a long way to go on his contract, but I'm just surprised that there hasn't been any mention of his name going to a bigger side, because he has been one of the signings of the season and someone who I nominated for on this channel as the signing of the season last campaign. So it's not just a case of going downwards, it's a case of going upwards as well. I think João Palhinha deserves a move after this season, but who knows, after this next season he could become even better and worth even more to the team in West London. The team that everyone seems to be jealous of right now, Brighton and Hove Albion, and I've gone for a goalkeeper that has gone down the pecking order. All of a sudden was in the Spain team for a little while, Robert Sanchez. He's gone below Jason Steele in the pecking order. He's gone below Verbruggen in the pecking order as well, the player that they got on loan. So third in the pecking order, he needs to leave, and Brighton can get a pretty penny for him going to Spain, going to another club in the Premier League as a backup keeper or potentially a starter. He did have a rise to the top very quickly, and he's gone back down in the same rate. So I think that Robert Sanchez needs to leave, just both for himself, both for the club. I think it's the best suited for both parties. Aston Villa now, and a transition and a evolution coming on at Villa Park under Unai Emery. I've gone for a player that has been there a couple of seasons, hasn't worked out, from Barcelona, and that is Philippe Coutinho. Obviously came back hoping and praying that something could happen like his Liverpool form. Had a couple of goals against Manchester City, didn't he? One especially on the last game of the season at the Etihad when he made Liverpool and everyone believe. However, his turning fortune, just like Gerrard, has dipped at an incredible rate. Only coming off the bench and isn't a starter at Aston Villa on high wages. This seems like the perfect summarization of a player that needs to leave, wants to go. Anywhere else other than the Midlands seems to be the place that Philippe Coutinho needs to be right. Next up is Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham Hotspur. I've gone for the player that came from the Eredivisie, Davinson Sanchez, a player that hasn't really worked out, seems to be a bit of a calamity at the back for Tottenham. Tottenham need a complete rebrand at the back. They've had the same back four for the last 4 or 5 seasons, and it has gone incredibly stale. I can see, especially from the game against Newcastle, where they went final down in 20 minutes, that something drastic needs to happen. Ange Postecoglou obviously needs to bring in his own style, and Davinson Sanchez isn't the player for his style of play. Still got quite a bit of value. Obviously, his name is still quite valuable in Europe. Obviously, sometimes it is difficult to transition from the Eredivisie to the Premier League, and sadly, it hasn't happened for Sanchez this season, so he desperately needs to leave. Newcastle United, and obviously a team that are in the Champions League next season, this season coming up, and this one seems like a bit of a sad one. I've gone for Alan Saint-Maximin, a player a couple of seasons ago that was going to be heralded as a future legend, a hero, a cult icon, but obviously right now doesn't seem to be a key starter, doesn't seem to be a key player for Newcastle, a player that has a lot of value going abroad, could potentially go back to France, could go to Spain, any country in the world, and he will go for a lot of money. So to better off his career at Newcastle, to better off his career in general, I think it's best for both parties if Alan Saint-Maximin leaves Newcastle. 3 to go, and next up on our list is Liverpool FC, the red half of the Merseyside. I've gone for a player that was part of the team a couple of seasons ago, was out on loan, performed quite well, and his value is quite high. His stock is quite high right now. I've gone for Nat Phillips. Like I said, a key player a couple of seasons ago when they had their issues at the back. But Liverpool seem to have gotten past Nat Phillips, and it's quite clear to see that Nat Phillips isn't the quality that Liverpool need right now. They need a centre-back with a pedigree of a Champions League level. He's very much a Premier League or a high Championship level right now, but I believe that he won't be a top player at Liverpool. So his stock right now is probably the highest it'll ever be at Liverpool. So to cash in right now would be the best solution. Chelsea FC next on our list, and this is a bloated squad. Obviously, Kai Havertz, Mason Mount, to add to the list of players that are already leaving Chelsea. And I've gone for a player that arrived at Chelsea in the summer, a player that was linked with Manchester City. Chelsea beat him to it, and it's gone horrendously wrong. I've gone for Marc Cucurella. Marc Cucurella obviously coming for 50 million back in the transfer window last summer. Brighton are rubbing their hands right now over that transfer because he seems like a shell of a man since then. He either needs to go out on loan to another Champions League squad or just go out with a clean slate, because it clearly isn't working between Chelsea and Cucurella. There's something wrong there, because he is a player that we should see. He had a great couple of seasons at Brighton. Obviously, he was at Barcelona, so that isn't any mean feat. So for a player like that to crumble so quickly, it just isn't working for both parties. I think this is the best solution. The penultimate team is Manchester United, and I've gone for a player that has been linked away from Manchester United for the eternity of time, a player that's becoming a little bit of a joke now for being in a Champions League team, and that is Harry Maguire. A player obviously coming from Leicester City with high stock. Ten Hag doesn't clearly trust the player as well, and I think that his confidence has been absolutely shot since then. He could go abroad, he could go out on loan, but a team like West Ham or a team like Everton, a team that love defending, really would suit Harry Maguire, because at the end of the day, Harry Maguire is a good defender. He just isn't a good bold playing defender, is he? He's a good defending defender, if that makes sense. So I think for both Manchester United and Harry Maguire, it's weird to say, but your captain needs to go. And finally on our list, a player that hasn't really featured much for Man City last season, signing from Leeds in the summer, I've got for Calvin Phillips. Obviously, Calvin Phillips is a player that hasn't featured much for Man City in the last season or so, and it seems to be a case of there are too many players at Manchester City that are slightly better than him, and everyone can see that from him, and I think even Calvin Phillips knows that. Potentially a West Ham move to replace the outgoing Declan Rice could be the perfect replacement for West Ham. Could be the perfect place for Calvin Phillips, because West Ham are more defensive suited midfield, aren't they? So I think that's the perfect place for West Ham and Calvin Phillips. But there it is. There's the 20 teams, and there are the 20 players that needs to leave each and every respective club in the Premier League. If you haven't already, can you go and subscribe to the channel? Do appreciate, like I say, every subscribe that I get. You don't have to, I'm just saying. I will appreciate it, and I will, give you a nice little handshake or a high five if I meet you in public or anywhere else. But if you haven't already, you can go and subscribe to my mate Callum's channel. He is flying right now, especially about Liverpool content. Please like and comment below who you think should leave each and every respective Premier League side. You don't have to mention them all, just a couple or so, and I will reply to you in the comments below. Thanks, guys. I will see you all very soon. Cheers. Peace.